In today's episode, the nature chef himself, Tom Kral, teaches you how to rewild your diet. Learn why our connection to nature is absolutely essential, how to incorporate wild foods into your everyday life, why we don't need to fear nature, and how to connect with your own nature chef inside each and every one of you. Now, Chef Tom is giving away a secret recipe, his sourdough Bannocks recipe, that includes some of the foraged ingredients that you can come across yourself, including things like rose petals, pine nuts, pine pollen, plantain greens, all sorts of cool stuff. So make sure to go to Tom's website after at natureschef.ca. That is natureschef.ca. And just sign up for Tom's newsletter and he will send you the free recipe on the sourdough Bannocks, a recipe you do not want to miss. All right, everybody, I hope you enjoy this episode. This is really fun, and Tom's a good friend of ours and wealth of information. His website is full, it's a panacea of information on how you can incorporate wild foods yourself that you can find on your own, literally in your own backyard, and incorporate them into the foods that you eat on a regular basis. All right, everybody, enjoy the episode, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye. Welcome back to the Inspirelife podcast. And this time I actually remembered to hit record again for the episode, so we'll actually be able to hear it. So today we are continuing on with our series on living freely and what that means from a physical, mental, emotional, spiritual perspective. And so we're interviewing a lot of diverse guests and tackling this conversation from many different perspectives. And we're excited to have Tom Kral, private holistic chef and friend of ours that lives literally 5 minutes down the road. So we brought him on because we've been really diving into his offerings over the past year or so. And Tom offers these amazing workshops on how to incorporate and how to forage for natural foods, how to incorporate them into your diet and be able to make these amazing recipes with them. And I mean, his stuff is like next level. So we thought we had to bring him on here because this has been a big topic over the last while, really around being able to have food security, how to incorporate your own food, how to make your own food. So I thought this would be a really important conversation to have with our audience and just share all of your experience. So Tom, welcome to the show.
Wow, thank you so much. Quite the introduction.
Well, I'll read off what you've got on your website because I think this is really fun. So it says,
Okay.
Beyond catering, Tom delivers a diverse West Coast culinary experience from personal wild food workshops to intimate dinners in your own home, nourishment at a retreat, or crafting backyard family fare spreads. Kral knows how to deliver the goods, bringing a mastery of nomadic kitchen arts, improvising and attuning as nature inspires. Wherever the action is, this passion for the holistic, rustic, and delicious is what has led to his greatest self-made, at-your-service creation, Nature's Chef.
And we should mention too that we're actually going to be collaborating with Tom as well for our own retreats as well that we're going to be hosting. So it's just, yeah, amazing stuff that we're excited to work with you and bring more of you into the world and with our audience here as well. So thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, bring our gifts together,
Mhm.
right? That's a beautiful thing.
Tom, I was wondering if I know the last couple of workshops of yours we've attended. So we attended a trees workshop just yesterday, and a couple of weeks prior to that, it's wild foraging in the springtime, and we did that with you too. You do a beautiful intro at the beginning of your workshops, and you speak from the heart of your background and what brought you to where you are currently. And I'm wondering if you can speak to that with our audience.
Right. Yeah, I think it's important. Why do I do this and what brought me here? And it's, the nature chef and how that all came to me. But yeah, it's a reconnection to source, our creation of like where we came from, right? And I, you know, feel humanity is getting a little bit off path of that. Just like agricultural industry and everything else. Anyways, so I grew up actually in Ontario, where you guys were living as well. So I grew up in a family-run business. It was called Prague Deli. So it was a Czech deli in the heart of Toronto, like Queen West. And yeah, I was the deli boy that lived on top of the deli and had my father a butcher and sausage maker, and my mother a baker, and also like amazing cook chef. And obviously I got put to work right away. And yeah, it was our family business. Yeah, 3 generations, 68, and we ran it to 2012. So it was a big part of my life, just growing up in the food culture. And like Czechs are very like pretty, like to have a good time and get together and sing and eat and drink beer, eat schnitzel, dumplings, like all that. It's a nice, vibrant community. And obviously, yeah, they were all escaping communism. So they kind of, I grew up with that, like don't trust the government already. Kind of, I guess, was seeded in me at some point. I just like grown up with the stories of communism and the control like that my parents grew up with. And anyways, yes, they came to Canada and had children. I have two other sisters, and also cottage. We have a cottage still up in Muskoka, and it was beautiful. Like it was very important. I think my family, my parents knew the value of nature and like getting out of the city on the weekends, and how holidays to be like out by the lake and doing that. And Czechs, we also love mushroom picking, so we picked mushrooms as a family. Like that's something we did growing up. Like I have lots of like photos of like baskets of mushrooms, and my grandparents were like really out of like master mushroom pickers, like big baskets, like tables overflowing mushrooms. And the house, like the cottage, would stink of mushrooms drying because we would use the mushrooms in the soup, like in the deli, right? We were foraging and putting it in like wild mushroom soup. Like it was like $2 a bowl or something. It was like, right? It was like pretty. That's what you did. I'm like, you gather food from nature, and we pick berries, and like that's why wouldn't you do it? It's very flavorful. It's great activity. It's free. Yeah, and so I grew up with that culture, and it's really nice. But then, yeah, obviously, like getting into professional cooking, like my first job of, working in the summer, I got a summer job up in at the cottage country area as a resort. My grandfather was really good friends with the chef there, and um, my grandson needs a job, so for the summer, so I started that, and that just kind of like introduced me to the whole like fine dining and uh, plated or the fine dining atmosphere, because like I just grew up with the deli food and pretty simple, but then it was like I really got hooked. I was like really found it very awesome, like quite like adrenaline junkie. Like I always like to be like pushed, and so cooking could be very much like that. It's very like fast paced and like pushed, and the chef's yelling at you. I kind of like the challenge of cooking in that environment. And so I just kept going down with the jobs of like working, and I connected like a good family friend also was Suser Lee. Like he's one of these like Iron Chef kind of guys. Like yeah, he's really really rad, like Michelin star chef. And so he saw I was interested in cooking, and took me in and like showed me like what he was doing, which was like just blowing my mind of like the stuff that he's doing. So yeah, he's quite a master, like kind of kitchen ninja style. And anyways, and then apprenticeship. I did my apprenticeship at the King Edward Hotel, like in John Higgins. It was like the best place to do your apprenticeship in, Northern Canada at that time. Was like the brigade and of the system, and it's like a very like military like training. You're in one day you're in garbage department, another you're on sauce, and it's just like 4 years of like intense like training, and it really like strengthened my skills, and to be like adaptable, and to know like from baking to charcuterie and all that. Graduated with a Red Seal diploma. So, and then after that, I was like traveled to Europe and see Czech for the first time, because I wasn't able to go to Czech because the communism was still up till 89, right? We couldn't, my parents would go back, like they wouldn't be able to come back. Like they would have been like put in jail basically if they went there. So I couldn't go to the motherland until I was like in the 20s. Yeah, and it was just like really blew my mind of the culture, and like kind of I saw it differently than being like in Toronto, right? But it was like going to see like the old castles and the history of the cobblestone and all the medievalness that's still in Czech, and that the old slow ways were still intact in a lot of these areas, and like where my parents grew up, like yeah, small town, small village in the mountains, stuff like that. And I was inspired from the trip, and I came back and I told my parents, I was like, hey, I got an idea. I was like, I want to like take over the business and like renovate it, like make it like modern, right? Like, because it was kind of like retro a bit, which people like, but we had to kind of cater to like the new hipsters moving in Toronto. There was like all the condos being built, and so kind of caught that train, and it was huge. Yeah, age 25, like having the restaurant, it was like, whoa, it's like a lot of responsibilities like on that, and it was amazing like experience. Like I never regret it, but like in that process of like being, you think like you're owning a restaurant and you're gonna like have freedom, right? And it's like you're even more of a slave than ever, like, because you can't like leave, like if someone doesn't show up, like you got to be there, and like you've got just you're constantly like on demand and on need, and it is your life, and it's fine for a while, but over time you just it's higher, you just like you burn out, right? So that the chef burnout started to settle in after like 5 years, and my own health, right? My health, and just like feeling like overweight, and like I didn't really get to go out and camping and nature anymore. So I was lacking that nature, and that like I loved. I always like inner child came out whenever I would be in nature. And I was lacking that, and I started to like think, about my health, and so I started to just like train and go to the gym, like have like a connection with the gym, and just have like a personal trainer, and then, diet, obviously, it was like, oh, and then over that, like just looking at food at a different lens of like where food comes from, and it was like the power of like Google and going down the rabbit hole is like led me to like Monsanto and like, factory farming, and what is this food? Where does it all come from? Questioning it, right? And it's like I couldn't like participate anymore. Like I was like, holy, like all this like food like that I thought like is like nourishing me. It's not. It's just like poisoning me, right? So I was on a mission to like reconnect with like real food again. Like I want to go to the source and good healthy food, right? I was going to like the health food store, and like I was in my superfood phase of like getting goji berries and cacao beans, and which is good, like to go and like get healthy organic foods. And but then I in that process like discovered wild foods, and it was like the dandelions, and like how much nutritional medicine and like is in a dandelion, and like making pine needle tea, and like I was just like, what, like this is like the real superfood. So I was like just started to experiment. I started to like eat these foods and see how it felt like in my body, and my body really liked it. I was like, whoa. It was like, what? I was like, how could I not like use this as a chef? I'm like, why aren't we using this? Generally, it's like you pick up the phone, and you order a case of this, and you don't question it. And I was like, what's going on? And I just like kind of went, yeah, my awakening, my spiritual awakening into like the world, and the way it's run, and food systems. And I just like, I don't want to participate in that. I want to like write like as pure as I can. And yeah, so it's foraging, like even in Toronto, like doing urban foraging. Like I started doing that. Like there's a lots of places you could start foraging. And anyways, I'm at the cottage, and I just started to do my own thing on the side of running a Czech restaurant, where it's like I'm serving like roast pork and dumplings, and it's all good comfort food, but like yeah, it really sticks to the ribs, right? And I went yeah, just lots like cleansing and juicing and all this. So I did go through like a huge like, and it brought me to spirituality and all this. And I was just like, I can't do the restaurant thing anymore. I can't participate in this. Like it's changed a lot. The whole industry also, like the cost of everything has gone up, and labor and competition with franchise moving in. Like every block had a Starbucks and a Tim Hortons and the McDonald's, like and all these like, yeah, I'm like, we still had a good thing going, but like it's hard to kind of make profit. Like with like it's like having a drain on the sink. You're putting water in, and it's like your drain is like constantly being drained. Like money comes in, money's out. Like it's just doesn't go. So I ended up like, yeah, as a family we decided like selling the business was going to be the best. Yeah, just like leaving on a high note. we were serving the community for over 43 years in the end. And we were
Wow.
just like, okay. And yeah, we sold it. 2012 was my transition year, and it was quite a year of like transformation. And I had a partner at that time, like a wife, and we had on the island, like her family. It was like, so that's was like, okay, I guess we're moving to the West Coast. And I loved it out here. I was always like blown away, and I was like, one day I'll live out here, I guess. But like having family like pulled me out, like I was like, okay, this is where I have to go, right? And yeah, I landed out here, and it was just I was like free. I was like, no restaurant to manage, no people like picking up the phone, and I yeah just started to question like my being a chef, and like me like for the love of nature and like for the wild foods. It was like nature. I love nature. I'm a chef, nature chef. Like that's okay, nature chef. I'm like I Google it out. I was like, no one's got nature chef yet. Okay, I'm getting that domain, right? And yeah, and that's been on that journey. Like it's been yeah since 2012, like moving here, and it's now 2024. So yeah, it's been quite a journey. And yeah, I'm settled in Souk. I have beautiful land that I steward. It's a beautiful 8-acre lot right off Ella Beach. It's like really sacred land. Yeah, I have my neighbor has been a big mentor. Is like Dante's been a big mentor. He's been on this like kind of rewilding path for a long time. So we connected over wild foods, and we did just like kind of having a mentor to be like asking like what's that, and like it's I didn't really have like the workshops back then available, and like books, like it just started to like surface over the years like it then. But I think that a big part of like why I'm doing the workshops now is like I would have loved to have something like that, like the information like that I had, the questions of like what is it, and where it's hard to get it just from a book and from watching YouTube videos. It's like to really actually like talk to someone and like ask questions and have like a real life experience, like and to yeah, so that's the content I'm putting out. Like I just feel like people are kind of hungry for it, and I really love sharing this because I could see how it does transform people. It's definitely like a gift and something that I feel is to share. Like if I'm just doing dinners by myself, like it doesn't I don't know, there's something like if we don't pass it on, like when we go one day, it's like what's the whole point of life? I'm like, if I just kept it with me to the grave, like right. So it's like passing on the knowledge to the next generation. And yeah, so
Yeah, and people have been way more interested in it too. Even as far as books and stuff, I think are more and more coming out. And I know we've been even in our library, it's been gradually expanding significantly since we've been out here with all of that
uh,
stuff. And then
And we actually attend your workshops with our kids as well, because I feel like this is the way to be educating them and to
yeah,
be showing them the ways of our world and how to interact with our nature. Because by being in nature, we get pointed and more better acquainted with our own inner nature. It just goes hand in hand.
it does.
And
Yeah.
it was really interesting yesterday, Tom, when you were talking specifically, it just kind of was an aha moment for me because when you were speaking of, going into the grocery stores and shopping, and we have to just be more mindful of, how we get our food and where it comes from and questioning all of that. I realized that, going into the grocery store, and not that there's been anything wrong with that, it's just the way it's been because we've constructed our reality and our societies and our value system in a way that that's just been a part of the equation. But
Mhm.
now it's like, I feel like not just ourselves, but a lot of people are questioning that, like questioning, well, what does organic really mean? Because it's not what it used to mean, even in
Mhm.
Canada. And why do
Mhm.
we have to even label it as organic as opposed to labeling all those other things, warning,
I know. I would think
and
like we
stay
need a
away?
label when it's been treated, and the other food is just food.
Food,
yeah, you
exactly.
have to have a special label now for food that hasn't been adulterated. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
Adulterated and sprayed and all of that. And
Yeah.
I felt that, within the grocery stores when we go there, it now being introduced to a different way of appreciating and looking at nature that's around us in order to receive nourishment. Going to a grocery store, I feel like it actually lacks the life and the luster that it
Mhm.
maybe
It
one day
does.
had, or maybe I didn't even expect it to. But as we were sitting at your workshop and we were talking about trees, and we were talking about the male and the female and the pollen, and then the wind would blow and we would see like
Clouds.
The
clouds of
clouds of
pollen go
pollen. Yeah,
everywhere.
that was
Like,
amazing.
there's something really beautiful about just being out in nature and witnessing that and being a
Mhm.
part of that and breathing
Mhm.
that and becoming aware of just how, when you're in nature and you're observing nature, there's constant communication and collaboration and cooperation with everything that you're a part of in nature. And again, we are a part of nature that we miss out on when we put ourselves in buildings and in concretes and in cubicles and in
Mhm.
jobs and
Mhm.
in identities. But I mean, it brings on a whole set of questions and series of questions that we start to then ponder.
Yeah, there's something. It's just even like being innate. Like you don't even have to eat anything, just to like breathe the air. Like you could literally like that alone is like a huge health benefit of like just breathing of like fresh forest air or like ocean air. It's like that alone, like and then that whole idea of like just to start nibbling. I just like people kind of often think foraging, I need to like fill up my basket and like make a big dinner from it, and it doesn't have to be that. Like it could just like nibble on things, like a constantly like nibble here, like a goat would kind of like go around on trails, like little tree tips, spruce tips, and little like cleaver, and I don't know, just like little weeds. And sometimes I don't even like know the plant. I'll like kind of sit with the plant. I was like, I don't know you yet. Maybe I'll like I just kind of touch it and rub it, and like curiosity, and like what is my like what is it? And I like, oh, that's not good, or it's like so it's pretty like awesome. Like it's such a joy when you start to like invite curiosity, and you start to like, and it's not as like fear. A lot of people have this like fear of nature. It's like can't it could be poisonous and the kids die. It's better to get something with the grocery store because it's certified and it's like in a package that's trusted, right? But you know where that leads to. It's just like, so if you could just like learn like the the poison plants first, like the ones that would actually kill you, which is really just a few plants, like really like a small handful. All the other plants, like it's probably like tough or disgusting or it's like whatever, So I
Like
always
you
like tell
probably wouldn't
people
want to eat it
you
anyways.
wouldn't want to eat it anyways, right?
Yeah.
But there's a lot out there to just like nibble, and just like getting some of that like flora is like huge, like inoculating our microbiome with the plant's microbiome, and getting your hands like in the soil, and like kind of eating with your hands around the fire, and like this kind of stuff is like a huge, like your vibration. Like I feel like when I start to eat more wild, it's just like I'm hot. Like I feel this little like what, like I don't even like feel. And then if I'm like away, like eating conventional foods, like you go to like family members and like you're just like eating this food for a week or whatever, and like I'm just like I just need some greens right now. Like I need to nibble or make some tree tea, like get my vibration up again. Like I just can't, like there's a high of vibration when you do eat wild. And I'm like a natives, they were so spiritually connected, and all they were doing were just eating wild foods like all the time, right?
It's so
Yeah.
true. We had we've done many conversations around water and specifically talking about the difference between dead water and live water
Mm,
and the structuring process that takes place when things actually go from dead to being alive and what that
right,
means,
right.
and then how that interacts with our own biowaters, the intra and
Hmm.
extracellular fluids in our bodies. So when we think about, I mean, this is something I really appreciate about being able to like garden your own stuff or be able to pick wild foods, is like I mean, there is. It's like you're really going from like something that's really quite dead. And if you were able to assess it from a frequency standpoint, it would be different. You know, you've
Mhm.
got this dead sort of food that's been packaged for a long time, usually picked when it's not prime and all these other things, and then packaged for a long period
Artificial
of time.
light, probably.
Yeah.
And I get it. I'm not saying that, you know, like Taya said earlier, like I think these things have had places in different ways, but what I'm really finding now is that I'm finding more and more that, I mean, for ourselves, for quite a while, and I mean, even from being a naturopathic doctor like point of view, it's like, you know, I've always wanted to have more fresh, healthy kind of foods, but it's like I'm finding more people are just not satisfied with the almost lack of luster that's in our food. And they're questioning it, and they're recognizing that maybe there's not benefits from a health perspective and all these things. So I feel like people are transitioning where they're wanting to experience. And then, you know, like you said when you were talking earlier, I tried it and my body really liked it. I mean, it can really be that simple. It's like, see
Mhm.
what your body actually tells you when you start to incorporate some of these foods. And you can do it in lots of simple ways too. It doesn't have to be this massive, you know, thing. You
Mhm.
can just start to incorporate and then see what your body feels like. I know when I do, I get excited. Like I feel
Yeah.
like, you know, I'll take my daughter and we'll go out and we'll harvest a bunch of stuff from the forest, literally across the street, and make forest teas. And something about that, I just like, I'm excited to fill my jug and drink the tea. And
Yeah.
you know, and it tastes nice, and you get used to like different types of flavors and tastes when you're doing it. But
Right.
like it just, I feel it in my body. And it's one of those things where it's like, until you've kind of tried it and then even gotten a chance to, you know, allow yourself to almost transition a little bit into what that feels like. I really
Mhm.
feel at a certain point, you're just like, you start to crave it.
You do. Yeah. I'm like, it's like waking it up. You can't like not like, you can't just turn it off like once you get introduced to it. It's just like, you know, and I've seen it in people that I introduce like foraging and wild foods, and you know, it's like, oh my God, I didn't know this. It's just like blew my mind. I was like, how do you like go back to like, it's like going backwards in evolution. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, so I could see like people just like light up and they just like, whoa, it's like this whole world is waking up to them. And it's like, it's hard to take that away from someone after, right? Like, and I feel that's a huge part, like, and kind of how do we like kind of sustain nature and like get people to like love it, you know, and like fell in love and like, oh my God, my food is there. Like I would hate a bulldozer to come and like just put a concrete like parking lot or whatever. Like, you know, this like you love it, you know, appreciate it and like protect it, right? Because you know that's where your food and medicine and like all these like upbringing memories you've had as a childhood, like in a forest, you grew up playing, and the kids are playing, like, you know, like how do you have to like stop and protect it, and this is like you develop a relationship, right? And this relationship is huge, like, you know, just to like fall in love with your ecosystem and your land, you steward and you like take care of it, you tend it, and that's the whole like where we as humanity need to come back to, I feel, is like learn to like have that relationship and protect it like a loved one, right? You wouldn't want you to harm your loved one, right? You're gonna want to like protect it, and it's going to provide you what you need when you have that like connection to ecosystem. And ecosystem could be like around like any neighborhoods, like front yards, like, you know, instead of like a lawn, like having, you know, medicinal plants on your front yard, and having a tree like of that has medicine, or like even just spruce tree and or pine tree, or, you know, a fruit tree, and like pick the fruits off off the tree. And it's like how like that would like just change. And you know, you wouldn't want anyone to like spray your garden, like it's like,
Yeah.
no, you're going to protect it, right? So, and then having more diversity in our landscapes, and it just increases like amount of like the pollinators, like the whole health benefits of the community. And it's like you know, that's topsoil, it's like everything, like not just our home but the whole ecosystem for all creatures, right? It's their home too. And that's, you know, if we have more and more concrete and more urban like jungles, like doesn't it does, yeah, like these little animals, they don't get their home, right? It's like, where do
And
I
we get
go?
more and more disconnected from it too. Like I feel like then we just, it's like you lose that direct
Right.
experience with it. And like you were talking about appreciation, I feel like that's part of why it feels so good when you do eat these different foods, because in the process of it, you're seeing it different. You're seeing it through different eyes, and then
Mhm.
you're more engaged in the whole process of even collecting your foods and how you're going to use them, and you're excited to actually figure out how you're going to be able to incorporate. So I feel like, from that, when you're talking about this concept of like a different frequency, you're kind of imbuing that excitement and that appreciation and that reverence for
Mhm.
nature.
Effortless. It's
It's a
effortless.
part of the
Right.
process. And so then when you eat
Right.
this meal, it's got all these layers of
It
appreciation
does
and reverence and sacredness. It's
so
built
much.
into it. I
It
get
is.
goosebumps when I even say it, because I know what it
Uh-huh.
feels like when
Mhm.
we're doing that. So then, and then you sit down, and then if you're eating it with other loved ones or something too, like, I mean, or
Mhm.
if you all played a part in it, it's a very different way of being in the world.
It
And when we
is.
start to do that, then like what the stuff you're talking about, then you organically start to see things differently. So then you have a different relationship with nature. It's like I mentioned this just in one of our last interviews, but we had put a quote up that I thought was really beautiful by David Suzuki. And he was just talking about how, when we view mountains as deities, as
Mhm.
opposed to something to be, mined for their ore, or we
Right.
start to
Right.
see the plants and the animals as kin, as opposed to
Mhm.
something that we can take and use in just that way.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
relationship organically changes, and there's and then our actions and our decisions will follow that. So
Mhm. Mhm.
to
Mhm.
me, it's like when we get closer and interact with nature in a really heartfelt, organic way,
Mhm.
everything just starts to shift. It's
It
like, we
does.
talk about creating this new earth. I really feel like if we all were able to connect more deeply to nature, I really think what we envision for this new earth will organically take place, because
Mhm.
we're back connected to it. It's the
We
disconnect that
are.
throws
Yeah.
everything in these trajectories that don't make
All
sense.
right. It's like the work with nature and not against her kind of philosophy, right? And I'm not saying like go back to like the Stone Age time, and like we are embracing technology, and it could better our systems, but that we're not like taking from nature. We actually like benefit, and we work with it the way that we build, and I can see it. It's happening, like people, the way that people are building out there in a conscious way. It's like, wow, yeah, we could work with nature, and having areas of development could be incorporated, like the way that we landscape, like just like the landscaping alone would change so much in our mental health and physical health as well. And yeah, the appreciation is just like huge. It's just like I think there's been studies about like giving gratitude to your meal. It's like you you will just, that alone, just give gratitude to your meal, like increases your health. Like people that give gratitude to their meals are generally healthy. And there's studies of like doing restaurants that like have like angry chefs, that preparing food, and it's like, and that like the overall product that's being sold, it's not as flavorful as someone that's like in love and they're enjoying what they're cooking, all the energy that's going in the food, like you're eating that energy, right? Like it's just like that alone, like it's just like to bring that into to the way you create your food and meals, and not that it's like a chore and like, oh, I have to cook. I'm like, "Argh." And it's like, oh, it's an inconvenience. I'm just gonna whatever, order something, or microwave dinner kind of idea, right? So it's just that appreciation, the gratitude, the connection. It's like that alone, and you bring in the foraging on top of that, like man, yeah, it's just like mind blowing. You make a big pot of tea, you can make it ferment. Like I got like a good like herbal like jean culture, just like feed it. I mean, then you could have a drink like when you want, like it's just like convenience when you have it this way, and it's like you share it. Like your friends have come over. Here's a glass of it. What is this stuff? It's like whoa. It's like, yeah, it's just some some Branford needles and fennel and lemon balm. Like it's yeah. I think that's the kind of huge like awakening we need in our culture, because the further we get away from nature, the more disease and the more symptoms that we have, and that's what we're seeing in our culture today. And there's companies now that's like trying to benefit off that. It's like, oh, we've got the magic pill, just take that, right? And I think we're just starting to realize, like, hey, that's not actually, like, it's just like suppressing the symptoms, right? We're not getting to the root of it. So it's the connection to nature, and there's a lot of science that's backing this up, the benefits of like the mental mind state of being out in nature, going, and the foraging, the medicinal content, like, yeah, there's like,
There's a cool book, Tom, called Your Brain on Nature. That
wow, cool.
it was actually written by a colleague of mine that graduated, I think, a couple years ahead of me in naturopathic medicine. But it's such a good book. He really breaks down. I mean, he basically kind of shows just even spending time in nature, how, you couldn't orchestrate a better, anti-anxiety, antidepressant,
All right,
ADHD medication because
it is the prescription.
it
Yeah.
gives you like the perfect ratio of all of those neurochemistry that you need to kind of get
Yeah,
back in balance. So, I mean, it's a prescription for everybody. I think,
holy,
whatever you can
yeah.
do to get more just
Mhm.
immersed in nature.
And this is what
It
I was
is.
thinking, even as you were talking about gratitude. I for a long period, just because I didn't have that upbringing of having, faith in anything bigger than myself or my family.
Hmm.
And so I really struggled with that when I came across challenges, because it's like, what if this is just this material world and that's all we have? And so um, what's interesting about what you're proposing and even what you're inspiring, I find, is that when you do interact and play and mix in with nature in the way that you do within your workshops and what you're inspiring in others, the feeling of connection and gratitude and reverence naturally comes in. Like,
It
it's not
does.
something I have to
Mm.
work at on an intellectual level, like, which I did for a period. I was like, okay, this morning I will do five things I'm grateful for, and tonight I'll do 5 things I'm grateful for. And that was helpful
Oh
for
yeah, that's
sure, to
great.
a degree.
Mhm.
That's all I had for a period of time. But then it was like my body was actually yearning to go out in nature. I would go
Mm.
for and beyond my parents' backyard. After my divorce, I had gone back to live with my parents, and they had like a strip of untouched land behind their house. And every day it would just call to me, and I would just like go for half an hour, and I would ask my mom to watch my son just so that I can lose myself, my
Mm.
sense of self in on that trail for a period. But I feel like more and more people are just starting to realize that the way in which they've constructed their lives, that we've heard of people working from 6 to 6, they see their child for an hour and then they're off to bed, and they're off maybe 1 or 2 days a week. It's just the way in which we've constructed our day to day it's not working to our
No.
well-being and
Hmm.
our planet's well-being. And so we're being called to reevaluate lots of things. And you said that your life kind of turned around in 2012, which is kind of interesting, and the year,
Right? Yeah, and I was
right?
33 as well.
Of course. So, but I feel like it's the call is coming on strong now for a lot of people to like reevaluate, shift,
Hmm.
think things differently. We're reevaluating our finances and our banking system, our politics,
Totally.
our
Yeah.
food, our
Food system.
Education.
our
I'm like, just the
education.
idea of like a restaurant, like, oh, we like go out and like, oh, I need to go to a restaurant, and like nature is the restaurant. Well, we just like have a fire, like have a backyard like feast, like someone that loves cooking, like especially for chefs. Like I really like hope to like inspire chefs to like actually you have a gift. Like you could cook without a job that's like got the restaurant and the whole like commercial kitchen with all the fluorescent lights and the exhaust hood and the order tricks and like all everything, and just like a buzzing, like it can't work in commercial kitchen. I was like, I'm so sensitive to it now. It's like, how do you work in this environment for so long, and all like the chemicals that's required for like sanitation, and like, man, it's just crazy. Like I'm just like, you could just cook. Like that's what I started doing. I was like, I don't want to work in a restaurant. I was like, I don't want to do that. I like to cook. Like I'm just gonna put it out there. It's like, hey, I'm this guy. Like I'm nature chef. This is what I do. You want to do a dinner with me? Like invite me over your place. Like, I'll do you an awesome dinner for you. I'm like, it's gonna far outweigh any restaurant you're gonna go to. You're gonna be like on your own time, get your own wine or whatever you want. Like, what do you want on the menu? Like, here's some protein options, like gluten free, like whatever. Like, I could easily adapt, and it's just like people love it. They're kind of like new to it, and they're like, I don't know, who's this guy? Like, and then they have the experience, like, whoa, that was like the best dinner. It was like, like it's just like people are like so hungry for it because it like brings this like connection to the food. There's like story behind it, like I'm telling people, it's like, yeah, I gathered this like last year. It's been like fermenting. I've had it in like honey, and there's like a reduction of like blackberries, like balsamic, and like there's like layers of this dish of like a whole year. I was like, what? I was like, you can't do that at a restaurant. Like restaurants, like big turnover, you gotta like feed the machine, like it's constant. Yeah, you can forward, and like it's not, but there's like the slowing down and fermenting and like having the pantry stock and sharing that with people is like, whoa. It's like people are, like have that experience, and they're just like for chefs, like this like personal private chef, like it's just like massive need. Like there's no one else doing this. Like there's caterers out there, but they're more like bigger groups of people, and it's hard. Like, you have a whole staffing thing. So I didn't like, I don't want no commercial. Like I'm not in that like program. Like I was like, whatever you do, there's the people that have me. You sign the waiver. I'm happy to come over. Like this is like we're all in agreement here, and like people are just like, whoa, I feel like way better than I ever did like going to a restaurant, and they're just like, it's a new way of thinking, like changing the paradigm that we've been like born into. It's like you don't actually have to have like these like commercial restaurants, and it's like huge burden, like the overhead of like just having commercial space alone. Like how much overhead do you have to have, right? So yeah, it's that's why I really like hope like other like nature's chef. That's like I feel like I'm not the only, like I hope there's like other nature chefs. Like that's the whole idea of like I've a membership, I'm trying to like inspire like other nature chefs. Like we all have a nature chef in us somewhere. We all, our ancestors used to hunt and gather and food and cook. Like we all have that in us. So you just kind of unlock that nature chef in us. And so we could all do this. Like we could all have access to it. And yeah, not everyone's going to be like a certified chef thing, but just to bring in the nature into your home, into your space, into your lifestyle, and share it with the family. It doesn't have to be always like a 5-star white linen table dining. It could be just a family dinner. Like, hey, I'm like, and I've like Caitlin, like my love, she's a big part of my life, and we really work together on bringing like children to nature. And so she's got a 9-year-old, and she's really good at foraging, so she'll bring a basket of something, like, and we'll use it in the dinner. I'm like, oh, look at that. I'm like, just like that alone, it's like huge, just like nourishing the family. Like it's just that's like the big goal, is just like be nourishing the family with this, and that it could be like a normal thing that we do. Like it just
Yeah.
like
That's the new normal.
Beautiful.
The,
I was just thinking, you spoke of you're sensitive to the degree that you can't even be within a restaurant environment and handle all the lights and the
no.
pace and it's interesting because I almost feel like more and more of us are becoming more sensitive, or maybe more aware of how things around us are
actually making us feel.
biologically affecting us, and yes, how they make us feel. Like the other day when we were driving out into town, which we don't do very often, but it's funny because every single one of us, while we were waiting, I think maybe at a red light, the kids, my mom, and us who were in the car were like, oh, do you smell that? Do you smell the exhaust, the fumes from the cars? And really, it's like we were driving all the time while we were in Ontario, and though
Didn't
it
bother
was
you.
bothersome there too, to a degree, not to the degree that it's becoming so now. And even lights, lights, turning on the lights at nighttime. I'm so sensitive. My eyes are so sensitive to the light. So we're actually dimming them, or we're taking lanterns and we're turning on the lanterns instead for lighting at night. But do you find that that's happening in your world as well, where
Oh my.
this
Yeah.
awakening is
Well, and
almost like just becoming more aware?
and that gets back to being in alignment, I think, in harmony with nature. It's like even
Hmm.
bright lights at night are not supposed to be bright lights at night. There's a cycle. It should
Hmm.
dim. And
Yeah.
different
I
wavelengths of light are not as they shouldn't be as apparent in the evening as they are in the morning and stuff.
Yeah, I like this, like what I kind of see humans like being domesticated, right? Like they over centuries of like control and like like a wolf. You take a wolf from nature and you turn it to a chihuahua. Like how does a wolf become a chihuahua? Like it was a wolf, and over domesticating and breeding a wolf turned it into a little lapdog. You could like that couldn't, like if it was in nature, it wouldn't last a day. Like basically it would probably be eaten by something it couldn't protect itself. That's what I feel like humanity has, like we've been cultivated, like domesticated through cultivated foods, and like all the programming that we've had through education systems and religious societies and government and all this like has made us into like we're now see nature as this like foreign thing that we need to fear. I was like, whoa, it's like no. It's like so it's all this like rewilding, and that's a big part of like our community that I'm connected, our like tribe kind of, we're all like earth viewers, and we do like friction fires, and we like build shelters, and like being able to like sustain yourself like in nature, like you work with the nature, and there's amazing people like in our community that like weave baskets and like carving like wooden spoons and all this kind of stuff, and you start to go deep into it. And yeah, so that's the sensitivity is like when you start to remove, like you go back to nature, and then yeah, like a chicken like in a coop, like it has no idea. It's like, oh, this is a great life, but then you start to like bring it out like in a free range chicken like environment, and like they're not going to want to go back to the coop. Like there's like they know where it's good, right? Like it's like I don't want to go in that coop being locked up under like fluorescent lights and all this stuff. Like I want that grass and like the things I could peck at, like all the bugs and weeds, and I could eat like the light. Like so that's kind of like what happened to me. I was like, I can't go back. And like you become sensitive. You could feel, you know, Wi-Fi. You could feel like if I'm, yeah, like I have a grounding mat, like I'm grounded right now, so I could like, because I'm too much like on computer, like I start feeling it. I was like, and I just got to get outside and like, I don't know. It's just one of those things. Once you remove yourself, and when you step back, you're like, oh, whoa, that wasn't. I didn't feel that before, right? Like, but you're now aware to it, and then it's like, yeah, it's that awakening stage. It's you can't
Yeah,
go
totally.
back.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. It's like where we have chickens ourselves now as
I
well.
love your chickens. They're such a
Yeah, and they roam in the backyard past we have like rolling hills in the beyond the backyard that they kind of venture out and
yeah,
move
yeah.
through. And we're surrounded by former farmers that had lots of chickens in the past. And, they're older folks, they're older neighbors. And
Mm.
they've made comments to us. We passed along the eggs to them, and one of them said, "Well, if they ever start to not be so orange because the yolks are so rich in color." She's like, "Well, if they ever start to not become so orange, the yolk, then you can start feeding them corn, or you can, and if they start not laying eggs, just
Put
put
in lights
lights
in
on
their
them."
area.
We're like, "We've never done any of that." And they're actually just happy chickens
They
that
just
always
have it. They
lay
just do
bright,
what they want.
yeah, bright or gorgeous orange yolks, and
It's like
just
let them have the space, given the environment to foster,
roam
to
free.
really create a good environment for them to be healthy, and they
And
just
those,
go wherever and they do
yeah,
it, and
I like
they're
there's.
laying right through winter, like they've
Yeah,
laid
they
eggs
didn't
regular,
Oh
stop.
wow, okay,
almost through
without
winter,
a
and that
light
was
in the
no
thing.
lights or
Okay,
anything.
No.
No,
that's yeah. I'm like
slows down a bit, but
but this idea like, oh, it doesn't get that color, so we have to add like food coloring number 6, 7, 8, like whatever, and like this is like doesn't have that yellow. Like no, just give that life, and like we've got that yolk in us too, that golden ray that will start to shine out, and we'll have golden eggs, like, right? That,
It totally, yeah. I think of sometimes when we go out and we have interactions where you see this, I notice this a lot in town where people are just like, they lack the luster and color and within their skin and the way they carry themselves too. Like it's
yeah.
and even the enthusiasm about life, there's a palpable feeling of despair when we go into town, and
Oh yeah,
you can
I
just
know.
feel it and you
You
can
can
see
see
it.
the light in their eyes, like when someone's like really actually like, I've had a lot of people like, yeah, I'm like so healthy, or like whatever, I eat organic, but sometimes it's like, look at their eyes and like the bags on their eyes and not getting sleep. I'm like, are you really like healthy? Like, there's this like, are you like, I don't know, like there's like all like layers there, and but the vibration, like I feel like even like some children I see, like they're just like in their cocoon, like, and it's just like they're not being a kid, like be out there and like play, enjoy, and like have fun. Public school systems or like this, like kids are, they're like hiding behind the mask kind of thing. Like they don't have confidence. Like they just like, yeah, it's sad. So I feel like just getting them outside and get them playing in the soil and in nature, like it's a huge health benefit, like in mental state, and how that, you could see how like your kids like play and like around, like they're just like running wild, like they're way different than you go to city and they're just like in their phone, like they're given phones so young now, and it's like, yeah, this connection, and it's like the vibration just goes down. It's like,
Yeah.
the light, our light source is like being drained, so it's all about like protecting our light these days, and it's a huge part because there's I feel like energies out there that's sucking our light from, like different ways of programming and just the things that we watch on TV or whatever. It could just suck your soul and your light. Like this actually is a thing. Like just didn't, yeah, like a more and more seeing it's a real thing. What's behind it? That's a huge rabbit hole to get into, but it's just it is a thing to like protect your light. And I feel, this whole like foraging, why we connect with nature, it's like protecting, like bring that light in, so we could shine and bright, and we could support each other. Like our cup's going to be like overflowing, and we could support others that are in need and that need support, and raise children with this like knowledge, and empowering knowledge, like that they could actually like listen to the body, right? And like, oh, I'm not feeling like this right now, and they could like adjust and not consume something, or have this plant to like help with that. Like it's very like kind of intuitive, like
Mhm.
understanding your body and the energies, and it's like magic.
Disconnected,
Hmm.
disconnected, because I'll often say that to people too. It's like we really need to get back to listening to the body and paying attention to how it feels in different situations. And we're
And not relying on the should or shouldn't or
yeah,
the,
Hmm.
like just really the rawness
yeah.
of almost the
Hmm.
spontaneity of
Hmm.
what do you feel like in the moment? Because it's like I feel like it's even hard for people to have a real organic experience with things because we have so many ideas of what it's supposed to feel like, or what we mentalize everything, and and then it takes us out of the experience of it. And you'll see this with kids when it's particularly, it's like they just have a very, they know right away, like, yep, that's good, or no, it's not. And
Hmm.
they don't have to understand why, they just know.
Hmm.
But then
Hmm.
you see that change as you go around, and then they start to, now I think people might have an organic experience with something, but it's like, but maybe that's not the accepted experience. So then they have to figure out how to, like, maybe bury that and have a different feeling with it. So I think right now, just being able to have real, authentic,
Hmm.
spontaneous experiences with thing, and then let the body inform you, and then can you act more from that place, like then do more of
Hmm.
that, or bring more of that in, rather than try to rationalize it away.
Hmm.
And I just find the more that you participate in nature and be a part of it, that stuff, I feel like that connection to our own personal instructions gets a little stronger and a little stronger and a little stronger.
Hmm.
And then if we start to listen to it and put that into the world more, wherever we can, even little bits, that's where we start to make these changes more and more. Sometimes they're big, like when you talked about, in 2012, you can have this awake and you're just like, I can't do this anymore. Sometimes it's a really big one. For some people, it might not be, they may not be in a position where they can do that, but they might be feeling it. So it's like, when you do, where do you start to bring more of that in? Where do you listen to it and kind of start to, put
Mhm.
that into your life so it starts to move in another direction?
Yeah. Yes, that awareness is the first step, right? The awareness, like it's the first to get aware, and then bringing practice and it, yeah, I didn't grow up with that, like listening to your body. Like I didn't grow up with that. Like it's something I had to like develop later in life. But now I'm seeing like with Kate, my love, and she like with her child and you know all this knowledge, like she gets it like as a young age, and it's like, all right, it's like her normal now. It's like he's getting it, and that's the key, like that, to make it a normal, to make it like, oh, this is what we do, right, kind of thing. And like, so it's this huge, yeah. We've been conditioned a lot to like disconnect, right, from our body and like not trust the body, right, and that's now kind of trust the body. It knows what it needs, right? And it's not attacking you. It's just telling you like, don't eat those bag of chips with the seed oil, like or whatever.
Another thing that I love about how you speak of things, Tom, is you bring into question, another level of programming that we've all been exposed
Exposed to.
to, would be through language. And even when you talk about, invasive plants, you say, well, how about if we actually identify them as dominant plants?
Hmm.
And then you speak of their characteristics and what some of the benefits that they even bring to us and the earth and what have you. And you also spoke of one other thing that I really appreciated was seaweed. Like when we came to your seaweed workshop, it made us reflect on the fact that, like, why do we call these things weeds? Because as soon as we call them weeds, then it's that thing that you just want to get rid of and
Hmm.
that you find no use for. But when we start to actually see it all as plants and actually identify them and look for them, we started to see all the ways in which they actually are there to support us and take care of us and nourish
Right.
us and
Yeah.
make us better. So
Hmm.
just a complete different way of looking at nature around us.
Yeah. The language that we use and the labels that we put on things, it's just like pushes it away, right? That's weeds. Like, don't eat weeds. Like you spray stuff on, like it's like invasive thing. It's like doesn't sound good. That doesn't sound good to my body when it's like invasive. Like I don't want to, like it's, it's so changing it. It's like, yeah, that they're dominant plants, like the Scotch broom that really spreads. That's like that's healing the soil. That it needs to like, it's like has so many uses of like making beers and teas, coffees, brooms, like like I don't know. There's just like numerous things and like that we just like put labels on. So changing that, like changing, maybe it's not seaweeds, maybe it's sea vegetables, right? And like we could see it actually as like food that's like out there in the water to gather, right? And it's and something that's like really invasive in your lens. Maybe it's a dump, like it's like telling you, it's like, hey, use me, like how much I'm giving you. I'm like, look at how much I made. Like stinging nettles, I'm like, whoa, they just like spread. I was like, it's like telling you, like, use me, like harvest me. Come on, I'm in your face. Like I'm stinging you. Like, come on. That's like so just to see that the plants do communicate, like they are communicating with us, and to have a relationship with them. And yeah, maybe it's not always of edible use, but there's probably other use to it. Like every plant's got a use. And they look at indigenous people, they had uses for all plants. Like, if it was like building material, right? Or using it for starting fire or like medicine or like whatever. Like there's like every plant's got a purpose. Everything. Like what all of them, like all the ones that we hate too. Like they still have a purpose.
Yeah.
So
It's been one of the things I've really enjoyed the last couple of years has been just making our own tinctures. So like, I would always be working with herbs all the time, but they'd always be pre-done or in capsules and powdered and stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
since out here, it's like now I'll forage for my own and we'll make our own tinctures, we'll make our own stuff. So we're able to make our own things right from home. And
Mm-hmm.
it's awesome. Even your own
It's
salves
awesome.
and poultices. And it's like,
Yeah.
I love it because you're so connected to it, and there's something really potent also when you're
Mm-hmm.
getting your medicine literally in your backyard, like when it's grown right there rather than being shipped from another country across the planet somewhere over. You know there's differences within all of that too, as far as often the plants that we need. Usually you look around, you're starting to see them around where
Mm-hmm.
you are.
Yeah, the power of the healing actually comes like even before like even just like sitting with a plant and like asking it to like heal you, like asking like, hey, like can you please like heal me? Like I really need this like from you, and like that alone like unlocks like healing potential. Or like picking an apple off the tree is like, ask the apple, hey, can I have an apple from you? Is that okay? Like my name's Tom here. Like, I really just would love a juicy apple. Like, provide that for me. And they're like, it's yes. Like, you kind of like hear it. Like, yes, take my apple, make some apple cider, like, make some vinegar and make some tinctures with vinegar and make oxymels and share it with the community and like all this. Like, it's usually like this, like medicine amplifies when you start like having this relationship. Then you sit with plant, and it's not like indigenous, you know, uh, almost like shamans that like would sit with plants before they use it, and they have this like huge this acceptance into sharing the medicine. And it's like it's a huge thing that we're starting to like realize, and the science is starting to explain.
Yeah, and we're coming back to now in other ways.
And I know this might sound ridiculous to some who haven't experienced this, but I know in those moments when we are in nature and you do have that subtle, sweet communication of like, I'm so grateful for this like beautiful, juicy, tasty apple. Like I sometimes get so welled up that like I get choked up and teary because it's this feeling of love, of absolute love that comes and washes over me. And these are the qualities of nature that we're speaking of: the unconditional love, the generosity, the forgiveness, the
Freely giving.
freely giving
Really
constantly.
giving. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's those qualities
Yeah.
that is so innate within nature that when
Mm-hmm.
we are going back to and sitting in nature, that is calling us to our own innate nature again. It's like these are our qualities within ourselves that we're being reminded of through the reflection of nature before us.
Mm-hmm. It's
Yeah.
all just perfectly designed, like
Mhm.
God creator like made it. So it all just works. Like it all, if we allow it to work and not control and not this like alteration of it and creating something that's man made in a lab, like it all works. Like we don't have to fix anything. Like we just need to like let it be and work with it, and it's huge. And that's the work that we need to do, is just like, yeah, use what
Yeah.
God made and let it do its thing.
Tom, for people that are new to this, where would be some places where they can start the process? So if they want to start to try to incorporate some wild foods into their diet and
Wild foraging
wild
practices.
foraging practices, something along those lines, what would be maybe like top 3 or top 5 ways that they can start to incorporate that, even if they are, in the city or in the country? What would be sort of
Right,
accessible?
right. I'll sign up to my membership, to online online membership. Yeah, giving access to like information that people can access anywhere in the world. And yeah, obviously this content that I produce is more for the West Coast, Pacific, but a lot of it also like in this hemisphere can relate. But there's also like in your area, like in wherever you are in the world, there's someone that's foraging and it's got something out there. There's usually plant walks. Just like start looking at like, go on your social media and like search like foraging workshops like in your area would be a great way if you find a mentor in your area. And yeah, all around the world there's just like calling of nature chefers, I would say, or your people that do know plant wisdom, and there generally is plant foraging workshops. But yeah, also there is online content and books, and so but just to invite that curiosity, and the information's out there, like it's all there. There's like tons of books out there. There's a lot of people putting content. Yeah, obviously you're in BC. Like that's the information I give, because I give the recipes and like the way to like make it tasty and like preserve it. So then, because a lot of times I find that like people that teach foraging, it's like they go on about the Latin names and this is like everything and it's like, how do I make it taste good? How do I use it? Kind of, that's what kind of like lacks what I feel like, that people are sharing that foraging. So it's, my gift is like how to turn it into something tasty that kids would eat, making a pesto and or aioli or cookies and with the granfer in it. Like it's just like this is my gift, is to just by getting some foraging books is a huge one, in your area. Get that, sign up to any like social media that are inspiring to forage what's in your area, right? And YouTube's pretty good. Like if you just like want to look at the benefits of dandelion, like you just like easily Google that, like it will tell you like everything. So that's where to start. Yeah, just definitely get some foraging books, because then you could like learn the poison ones, right? Or learn like the ones that are like gonna do really lots of harm, I think, first, and then start with the basics. Like you really want to make some, like, get to know the trees, I think, because we did the trees yesterday at workshop, but a lot of people forget to look at the trees and look up, and you can easily make a coniferous like Christmas tree tea, like from these trees, right? Just not the yew tree, but that's stuff that you'll learn as you do this. They're generally a safe way to start. Make some teas and eat the common weeds, the dandelions and the nettles. Like that's a first thing. There's more advanced foraging when you start going down, but just small doses and work your way up, because you could also do too much and it could turn in, too much medicine is sometimes worse than no medicine at all, right? Like, so just definitely small increments at first and increase later, and as you get more confident, you'll start stocking the pantry and have like more like a whole like elixir bar with all kind of, it's a part of your lifestyle. You start to like gather and make something, like maybe you spend one day a week like going out with the family or by yourself, whatever, and like gather. Because like really, if you go out once a week, it's like grocery shopping. It's like you have enough greens to feed yourself for the week. It doesn't have to be like such a daily thing. It could be like once a week activity that you do, like set this time in your week to do this, like after work or whatever, and then you can make something, from it. It's really nice when you could like make a condiment or something, because it like extends it, or like infused vinegars, like, because then it just like keeps giving. And sometimes it's also a feast of like maple blossoms when they come out. You cook up maple blossoms and you make fritters. Like they're really sometimes abundant foods out there to tap into. But that's kind of where to start, I guess.
Cool. And please stop spraying. Don't spray.
Don't
spray
spray.
poisons on the dandelions. You can just like call us.
Right.
Or
Don't.
your weird neighbors that actually eat them and consume them, because
Holy.
they're great. Like we're actually wanting more dandelions on our property, and so we'll come and transplant them for you.
Yeah. Sometimes you talk to your neighbor, like your neighbor that's like has tons of dandelions or weeds on their lawn, and you knock on the door. It's like, hey, do you mind if I like pick some of this? You have a lot of edible things. Like, oh my God, yeah, I hate this stuff. It's like ruined. And it's like, I ask if they spray it. first or something, but it's usually like you're doing them a favor, right?
Mhm.
Or farms too, like sometimes local farms are just up in the weeds because they're growing a certain variety, and they don't want that. So if you offered them to come and weed for them, it's like, great, you're doing them a favor and you're also getting yourself some food, right? So there's a lot like of that when you start to look around you in a different way. Once you awaken, it's hard to turn it off.
Yeah, for
Tom,
sure.
Tom, what have been some of the favorite recipes that you've made using some of the wild foods? I know even when we were there yesterday and some of the different fermentation elixirs that you made, I mean, there's some really cool stuff. Like you guys were in the process of making like elderberry champagne. And I mean, maybe
Yeah.
just share for the audience some of the different types of meals that you can actually
Oh,
create.
wow. Yeah. Well, especially like you start getting into like hunting, right? Hunting and foraging, and then you could like really bring in like feasts, right? So I do like venison or fish, like just like it really adds to the experience. And so I also love like seaweeds that are like really like a huge like they're different. They're their own category. So making like some kelp lasagna, like thinking of it as like a pasta, like using them as like noodles are really great. I got a really great kelp cannelloni one that I use with a bull kelp. So that's really cool because you could literally using the seaweed as a pasta, right? And I love that. Or making soups, really good because you could throw anything in a soup, right? You could really from roots, thistle root, you dig up some thistle roots and you throw in some, stinging nettle or like Pacific waterleaf. And, you can make a broth with some mushrooms that you gather, some turkey tail mushrooms. And right, you throw a stone in there because the stone like cooks it, right? Stone soup, right? You grab a basalt stone from the beach and you throw it in the fire and you throw that in the soup, and it just like the soup starts telling you a story, right? And you're just like, and then or like a chowder is really cool because you could go and get some shellfish, right? And get some clams and some mussels or whatever, and you go in low tide and you put it in a pot and you steam them and you get all the meat out and put your vegetables in there, and it's like starts to, like these are my favorite kind of meals, right? I do a driftwood hot rock driftwood bouillabaisse where I took a driftwood log from the beach, I carved it out, I took gathered things from the sea, shellfish and also some seaweeds and things from the garden, and you just like throw it in the driftwood bowl, and then I've got a fire and heating up the basalt stones, and I cooking the food, like the hot rocks are cooking, they're boiling, they're simmering, steaming the food that's in the driftwood. So it's like everything's like from nature. It's like from like there's no like pot that you had to get, from mining mineral, like, you're using literally what nature provides. Like I think the closer you get to the source, the better it gets. Like the more experience, like the story that's entwined in the meal, the better. It's just like, and I've had people, it was like, what did you do there? I was like, oh my God, I was like, I cooked the fish. It was a fresh fish. I cooked it on the fire. I used some kelp flakes, so I harvested it, and I was like, oh my God, I was I'm like, it's just like simple food. Like that's my normal. That's like that's like kind of the best meals and there's so many best meals I've had. They just keep getting better and better.
That's awesome. Well, I know when we were debating on whether or not we were going to be able to make it to your workshop yesterday because we had a bunch of stuff here we still had to get done,
Uh-huh.
and our 8-year-old was literally, she was having a bit of a meltdown. She was in tears. I want to
Uh,
go. She's like, I want
yeah,
to
that's
become
so
an
awesome.
expert on trees and I want to know what kind of foods he makes with them.
Oh man, yeah, that's
Yeah, yeah,
awesome.
she
It's
loves
so
her
lit up.
foods. So it's like
Oh
when the
man.
tummy starts to speak, you got to listen.
Mm.
And she loves plants, and she's really curious about different plants and trees, and like, yeah. So
She's
I
really
that's
could really see that in her. Like she's
Yeah.
got it. Like some people just like got it. Like they just like at such a young age, they just want to learn. Other kids, like some kids are just like, yeah, I just want to play a game or kind of, but she has that light source. Like it's like, yeah,
Yeah, she's totally into it.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, I mean, all the meals we've had, Tom, they've just been absolutely
Amazing.
next level.
right,
And it really is
right.
an experience. It's a totally
Yeah.
different experience than going out to even a beautiful restaurant. It's a
Doesn't
very
compare.
different experience. So
I can't wait till we do a retreat together. Like
Yeah.
get like a whole
it'll be
like
awesome. It'll
I
be
week
so
think,
good.
long or
yeah, I
something
think
like
the
that.
people who come for a healing experience, this is just going to be another level.
Well,
That's
with what
gonna,
you guys offer on, I'll be the cherry on top, kind of.
oh, like I think it'll be just a really unexpected
Yeah.
treat and surprise for them because this is something that they didn't anticipate on being treated with. So yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Can't wait.
Tom, where can people learn more about the work you're doing? Where can we send them so they can check everything out and some of the offerings that you have?
Yeah, so I've got the Nature Chef domain, natureschef.ca. I'm like, if you just Google Nature's Chef, so that's the plural with a S, that you'll find me that way. I'm on social media, and I've got my website. And last year I did launch a online membership portal, so giving people online content that they could watch videos and get recipes, right? Tutorials on that. So that's something I'm putting out every month. So that's so if you just go on natureschef.ca, it will link you to the online portal because it's a different domain name, but it will all kind of link from natureschef.ca. You'll see my social media sites from there as well. Yeah, and then you can sign up. It's only $20 a month, and then if you are in the area, it gives you the discount to in person. People still like that real in person thing, but I like the combination. Like that's something I would I do appreciate. Like I learn better when I have time to like stop and rewind and listen to things in my own time, but then also to like in live and touch the plants and feel it, taste it, like with someone that I know what it is. So that combination of things, but you could get a lot from online, especially the recipes. And then we also do Zoom, once a month we could Zoom. You could ask the questions, right? Which is huge to be able to like ask questions of like, what is this? I've always like people like, what is it? Do I have the right one? Like, it's always like to have someone to be supportive, and it also builds this community too, is that we're all sharing this and we can all be supportive with each other and inspire each other because I'll see people like, whoa, I made this with this, like, whoa, I never thought about doing that, that's really cool. And I really love how like seeing people like get creative mind and they create like what they're being called. Like it's so cool, it's endless, and there's endless things to play with and taste. So anyways, yeah, so that's something I hope more people kind of as I launched it last year, and I really wanted to build it more. I feel there's a big need, and I just need to get this out there. And if people are hungry for it, I'll put it out there. Like the more people are interested, that means that I need to do this, right? So yeah, and then cookbook down the line would be nice. So lots of people keep asking me, where's my book coming out? I'm working on it.
Nice. And
Step by step.
if you happen to be on Vancouver Island and if you're able to catch one of Tom's workshops, we highly, highly recommend it. You definitely won't regret it. And Chef Tom, I'm wondering if by chance you'd be okay if we shared a simple recipe that people can tap on and learn more from you just through that recipe.
Most definitely, yeah. I always love to share, get people like get them to try it, and I was like, whoa, what is this magic? Like this actually could taste good, right? Like there's so we'll have to post a recipe. I'll pick one out that's going to be for everyone in the world. They could find something that's
Awesome.
there.
Oh, that'll be good. We'll
Thank
put
you so
a
much.
we'll put a link to that in the show notes there too. So
So look
it'll
for
be like
that.
a surprise recipe that you guys can go and check out and try out for yourselves. Awesome.
That, and along with all of the links to reach Chef Tom. And yeah, I think
that's a wrap.
Yeah.
Tom, what an absolute pleasure. That was really fun.
Thanks so much.
That was so much fun. I really love talking to you. I feel like you just talk all day about this stuff. But I'm getting hungry now, though.
Yeah. Time to eat.
Time to eat.
All right, guys. Take care. We'll talk to you
Many
soon.
blessings to you
Blessings.
too. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having me.